Most of us probably remember chickenpox as that itchy, spotty thing you just had to get through as a kid, a real rite of passage. But what if that disease we thought was settled is actually making a comeback? We're going to dive into that today, because some new data suggests we might have been underestimating this virus for a while now.
I want to start with this really stark warning from Dr. Jeffrey Goldhagen, a pediatrician who's been doing this for over 40 years. Yeah, many kids will die. It's blunt, it's chilling, and it gets right to the point of why we need to have this conversation. The stakes are just so much higher than a simple rash.
So why the sudden alarm? Well, it all comes down to this one big idea: herd immunity. Think of it like a community-wide shield. When enough people, we're talking about 95%, are immune, it creates this invisible barrier that makes it super hard for the virus to spread. And that shield protects everyone, especially the most vulnerable folks, like babies who are too young for the vaccine or people with weaker immune systems.
And this is where we're starting to see cracks in that shield. Just look at this data from Florida. Back in 2015, kindergarten vaccination rates were at 93.7%, so close to that magic 95% number. But look at the projection for 2024-2025. It's dropped to 88.7%. We are now officially below that herd immunity threshold, and that leaves some pretty big gaps in our defenses.
Okay, so if that community shield is getting weaker, we really need to understand what we're actually up against. Let's do a little refresher on the virus at the heart of all this.
The virus we're talking about is called varicella zoster. And yeah, everyone knows it for that famous, incredibly itchy rash, but that's not actually how it starts. The first signs are usually a lot more like the flu. You might get a fever, a headache, lose your appetite. You just feel kind of blah.
And then, once that rash does show up, it goes through this whole life cycle. It starts with these raised red bumps. Then those bumps turn into little fluid-filled blisters. And finally, those blisters break and form crusts or scabs. The really tricky part is that all three of these stages can be happening at the same time because new bumps can pop up for several days.
And here's what makes this thing spread like wildfire. You can pass the virus along for 1 to 2 days before a single spot even shows up. Think about that. You're spreading it without even knowing you're sick. And you stay contagious until every single one of those blisters has scabbed over, which can take a week or even more. That is a huge window for the virus to find new people.
So many of us grew up with this idea that chickenpox is just a harmless thing all kids go through. But that's a really dangerous misconception. The real story isn't about the itchiness, it's about the hidden dangers that can come along with it.
For some people, the risk of serious problems is way, way higher. Adults, for instance, tend to get a much more severe case than kids do, and the danger is especially high for pregnant women, for newborns and infants, and for anyone with a compromised immune system, maybe from something like cancer or certain medications. Even people who smoke are at a higher risk.
For adults, one of the biggest dangers is viral pneumonia. And we're not talking about a simple lung infection here. This can get really serious, really fast, and it can be incredibly tough to treat. It is a potentially life-threatening complication.
And then there's encephalitis. That's swelling of the brain. Now, it's rare, thankfully, but it is one of the absolute most severe things that can happen from a chickenpox infection. It can have just devastating long-term consequences. The risks during pregnancy are just profound. If a pregnant person gets chickenpox early on, it can lead to serious birth defects. And if it happens right around the time of birth, the newborn can get a life-threatening infection of their own.
Okay, this next point is a huge, critical medical warning that every parent needs to hear. Are you listening? Never, ever give aspirin to children or teenagers who have chickenpox. It's linked to a very serious condition called Ray's syndrome, which causes swelling in the liver and the brain. Acetaminophen is the much safer choice for handling a fever.
But here's the thing. Even after that last scab heals and falls off, the story isn't over. The virus actually leaves behind a shadow, one that can come back as a totally different illness decades later.
See, the varicella zoster virus never actually leaves your body. Once you've recovered, it just retreats. It goes into your nerve cells and lies dormant. Basically, it goes to sleep, sometimes for the rest of your life.
And this is where shingles enters the story. Decades later, that sleeping virus can wake up and reactivate as shingles, which is this really painful rash. Now, you can't catch shingles from somebody, but, and this is the part people get confused about, if you've never had chickenpox or the vaccine, you can catch chickenpox from direct contact with the fluid from someone's active shingles rash.
Wild, right? Okay, so we've looked at the risks. We've looked at the long-term shadow of this virus. But the story definitely doesn't end in danger. Now we have a powerful, modern shield we can use against it.
Some of you might have heard of chickenpox parties from back before the vaccine. It was this misguided idea to just expose kids to the virus and get it over with. But medical experts are crystal clear today, this is a terrible idea. The risk of serious complications is just not worth the gamble, especially when there's a much, much safer way to get immunity.
And that safer way is the varicella vaccine. I mean, just look at these numbers. A single dose is about 82% effective at preventing you from getting the disease at all. That is incredibly effective right there.
But the recommended 2-dose series? That boosts your protection into the stratosphere. We're talking over 90% effective at preventing chickenpox completely. And get this, 100% effective against the severe cases that lead to all those dangerous complications. This modern shield works, and it works incredibly well. So, when you put all of this science and data together, it leads us to a much bigger question. It's one that's less about a virus and more about how we function as a healthy community. You know, in today's world, we're just drowning in information and, frankly, a lot of misinformation. And that's why this advice from Dr. Goldhagen is maybe the most important takeaway of all. Talk to your doctor. Talk to your pediatrician. They are the best source for accurate, personalized medical advice, not some random website.
Which really leaves us with a final and pretty challenging question to chew on. In a world where we're all so connected, where a virus can spread so easily, where does our personal choice end and our collective responsibility to protect each other truly begin?